This Is Life, which is the new Mike Bartlett, him of Dr. Foster. And what was it? He did something else, please. Oh,
Was it
Press,
Press and
which I just absolutely detested.
was the Town? Was that Mike Bartlett?
That was the very first TV thing he ever
Yeah.
did on ITV at the end of 2012, yeah. And for some reason that I can't fathom, except for let's bring in the viewers, the BBC just keeps touting this as a Dr. Foster spin-off because it's got Victoria Hamilton in it playing the same character even though she's got a different name.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was as well. You know, that was my thing, that this is because this is how they had been promoting it. What happened next to Anna from Dr. Foster?
She
and
changed
then
her name to
and then
Belle.
yeah, and then in the first scene you see her as, I think it's Belle Starr is her name. There is a scene where a character says to her, you know, you've got a failed marriage and an alcohol issue, which were things that the character had in Dr. Foster. But apart from that, it's a completely different character, isn't it, really?
They really want you to think of this as the follow-up to Dr. Foster. I don't know if it is. I'm not convinced it is. It's the next thing he's done, but he did Press before this, so I don't know.
They've completely changed the character, is what we're saying, that Victoria
And
Hamilton
how well
plays.
do you remember that character anyway? Because I don't.
I
Really
remember her being a very strong confidant to Tom. She was the only person he could rely on, you know, certainly in that second series. I suppose what you're saying is, of all the characters, she's one that had less of an identity, I suppose.
I was trying to remember who she was married to. I was trying, doesn't matter. So This Is Life. It's a new 6-part drama written by Mark Bartlett, as I said. This is about a shared house in Manchester, which is divided into 4 separate flats, which is the way things are in the country at the moment.
Like me, I'm in a house that's divided into 6 flats, so, you know.
And is Alison Steadman your neighbour?
Yes, oddly.
Okay, good. That makes it more realistic.
Actually, it's Larry Lamb.
Oh, damn it. Alison Steadman and Peter Davison, they're the elder couple in one of the flats. Victoria Hamilton plays Belle, who is living on her own, but has a sister and niece nearby. Adrian Lester and Rachel Sterling are a couple. They live in the flats, as does Hannah, the young pregnant girl who lives with her partner and is expecting a baby. So let's just run this through.
With another man, I suppose, is the thing there.
Alison Steadman and Peter Davison, they live together. The episode begins with them talking about that they're having a big party to celebrate her 70th. She is a woman who...
Gail is her character.
Yeah, she sort of wakes up one morning and decides she's unhappy with her life. Her husband belittles her a lot. Even her children think she's a bit of a sad case and sort of poke fun at her, and she's just sort of sick of it and unhappy, and she's not happy with turning 70, and the episode begins with her...
I think for what you're saying, just say the next bit you're going to say, and then I'll disagree with you.
With her thinking of leaving her husband, and she literally bumps into an old friend in the car, nearly runs her down when she's trying to pick her husband up from a hospital appointment. So that's the first story.
But I would disagree with what you're saying. I don't think she's thinking of leaving until she has that encounter with the old school friend and realises, I haven't really done anything with my life, and you're right, he is belittling me, my children are talking down to me, and I get the impression that she hasn't had that realisation until she meets the friend, and yeah, sorry, go on.
And then there is Adrian Lester, who goes on holiday without wife Kelly, and bumps into Syra Chowdhury of No Offence, playing a character called Syra. I assume that's just for people who do podcasts, so they don't have to remember the character name, so thanks for that. She sort of befriends him, and there's a bit of a twist in 2 cases there, which I don't know whether we should go into greatly. The third story is of pregnant Hannah, who recently coupled up with Liam, and is very heavily pregnant, but for some reason she meets up with the baby daddy, as I think the kids call him. Yeah, me. I've not wasted my week. I've been looking up youthful terms, and has a surprising connection to him. They find out they quite like one another. Oh, and then Belle has her sister, played by Alan Partridge's Susanna Fielding, who is a recovering alcoholic and schizophrenic, possibly. And
well, no,
wayward...
I don't think she's an alcoholic. I think Belle's the alcoholic, and the sister's got mental health issues.
Sorry. And she's struggling with her wayward child Maya, who has been sent home from school for being disrespectful and angry, and she ends up knocking on Belle's door to say, "Can I live with you? Because Mum's just gone into hospital." Now, I had assumed, completely me going in assuming, I didn't think these things were going to intertwine. I thought this was going to be a bit like Clocking Off All the Street, where we focused on one member of the household each week, but these stories do intertwine and the characters do converge and they do meet and they do speak to one another. All of those stories I speak of just happened in the first episode. I've said this before. I said it during press, and I've said it during, I think even during Dr. Foster. I don't like Mike Bartlett as a writer, and this bored the pants off me.
Can we reveal the thing? Because I think the thing in this is key to a lot of what people are going to be saying about it after the fact. And this is going to go out after the episode has aired. I am surprised, because when we, obviously both of us watched this on the previews, normally there would be a list of things you couldn't reveal.
I got that list by email, annoyingly, which I had to read. Yeah.
And the big reveal. So turn off now if you don't want, and skip to the end if you don't want to know. But the big thing here is in the earlier scenes you've got Adrian Lester conversing with Rachel Sterling, who's playing his wife. He's gone on this holiday on his own, that she's had to do something else, as you say. He meets Cyrus Chowdhury, who flirts with him, and then it turns out that he's a uni lecturer and she's one of his students. But the big thing that we learn when his character goes to the Gail's 70th birthday party and has a conversation with Belle is that Rachel Sterling's character had actually died several weeks earlier in a bizarre escalator-related incident.
How many people? Perhaps it's bringing awareness, because I didn't know people died on escalators.
Could she not have just had cancer? I suppose it was revealed that Peter
David... A sudden heart attack or something.
It just seems like a bizarre thing for her. And then it's the reveal that they were doing a Sixth Sense thing, and that he was interacting with her even though she wasn't there, and that he's guilty that he's attracted to someone else because his wife's just passed away.
Even though their scenes were so terrible. They were some of the worst in it. Cyrus Chowdhury and Adrian Lester have zero chemistry. The way they talk to each other is awful. She says something like, "What can we do while we wait for me to dry off?" And he says, There's a TV, we could sit and watch it. I mean, for God's sake.
I don't think I minded this as much as you did. I think it is, again, as I said with us last week, it's a big BBC One primetime, 9 p.m. drama.
It's another mum show.
For people for mums. But for a lot of people, this will be something, they get home from work, 9 p.m, what's on BBC One? It's this drama. Oh, we remember her from Dr. Foster. There's things going on that a lot of people can relate to. The best performance for me came from Susanna Fielding. I really like those. I thought she did an excellent job at portraying someone with mental health issues, and the actress who played her daughter as well. And I felt they were good. And as you say, the characters interspersing, there being a lot of different stories at the same time, it really put me in mind. I felt I was watching a K melodrama. That's what it.
That's exactly what it was. It
made me feel like. And
I would love Lois and Records or whatever, Brief Encounters.
I wouldn't have been surprised if at the end they found out that they won the lottery together or something. Especially the story with the young mum, because that could have been lifted out of In the Club.
That was the weirdest story I've ever seen for a long time.
It does happen,
I know it does happen, but
doing the job I do, I can tell you it happens a lot more than you would think.
Yeah, but the way it was framed, it was like you didn't understand who the actual partner was. Very little time spent with him, and for some reason she wanted the actual dad there when she gave birth.
How I read it was that she wanted to include, even though they weren't together, and you got the impression it was like a one-night stand, I think she wanted her baby to know its father, and I think that's what I got from it. He was a very sort of simple. I think was he like an Ocado driver or something? He seemed very simple. So I think you meant to find him lovable and affable. So you won't be watching this again, Luke, I'm guessing.
I just think that it's so middle of the road, and yeah, it could have been a
But
Kay
people
melodrama.
like middle of the
I
road. If
know
you've
they
been, if
do.
you have a normal job and you've
Mm.
been working all day and you don't want to watch something that is going to challenge you, like my mum, for example, wouldn't want to go home 9 p.m. switch on and watch Des. She wouldn't. She'd rather watch something like this
Why wouldn't she watch Des?
because it's too hard. You know, it's about a serial killer. It's too hard going. A hard day at work, doing something that is quite taxing mentally, and you are dealing with a lot of serious real world things. You'd rather watch something that clearly isn't set in the real world, as you say, are characters that are written as
Okay,
the word.
so my counter argument is that your mum and I, if we were to ever to be in the same TV room,
Yeah.
we would get equal enjoyment out of Last Tango in Halifax. I'm guessing.
Yes.
And this isn't Last Tango in Halifax. You could say all the same things about it. You could say it's gentle. You could say it's for mums. But I adore that show, and yet stuff like this I absolutely hate. So is that down to the writing? Is it down to
I think
the
it's down to
performances?
you.
Well, no, it's not, because Last Tango in Halifax is much sharper. It's funnier. It's cleverer. It's
Honestly,
warmer.
I didn't mind this. I didn't mind this. I thought it was fine. The hour whizzed by for me. I relaxed into it. I don't think I overthought every single line of dialogue. I think that's what it is, Luke. I think for you've got a tin ear for dialogue.
So I just take that out of last week's podcast and slip it in.
Yeah, I know. I said that already. But you've got a tin ear for sort of dialogue that doesn't feel genuine, whereas a lot of people that would just go over their heads.
You know, these characters could have been in any, like I say about Kay Mellor's stuff, she seems to put the same people in just different scenarios, and I think you could do that with this. You could put these people in a Syndicate or in a Love Lies and Records or in.
I think it's a bit harsh. Love Lies and Records was absolutely awful. I don't think this is on the same level of that, but this is on the level of a Syndicate or in the Club. But people love those dramas, and I think people are going to like this as well. I think this is going to be really popular. But I think if you're watching this with a critical eye, then it's going to be different than if you're just watching as a viewer at 9 p.m. You're not going to be watching it with the same critical eye, criticising every little bit of dialogue, every little bit of the characters if they work. You are just going to be wanting to watch something that is easy to watch, is easy to follow. You know the actors, it's got Alison Steadman, I recognise her, or it's got Adrian Lester, I recognise him. It's got people that you know, and it has got the people who are going to follow this from Dr. Foster, even though that character, the Victoria Hamilton, isn't really playing the same character.
All that you're saying is completely valid, and I do agree. But I also think that people of my sister's age, my brother-in-law's age, some cousins that are a bit younger, maybe your brother and sister-in-law, this is the sort of show that they assume the BBC makes, and it doesn't speak to them at all. And in years to come, if they're still making dramas like this, then people will think, what's the point of my TV license?
Yeah, I would agree with you there, but I think they are making these dramas for a certain audience who are an audience that are going to flock to it. And I do actually think, the portrayal of mental health was well done in that story with Belle and her sister, and the impact that it has on the children of parents who suffer with mental health. I think that was well done, and that version of the story. And I think if you had that, I think the problem here is that it doesn't. What are you doing now?
I had to stand up for a sec.
Okay. It doesn't really have the impact. If you are doing 4 stories, things will get lost. I think that was my main issue, that most of these stories could have been their own. Certainly,
I wonder whether if they'd have done it the way I thought it was going to be, and I don't know why I had this assumption that we were going to spend an hour with Alison Steadman and Pete Davidson, an hour with.
I'll tell you why I think you thought that in a minute.
Then maybe they could have given more weight to the characters I found boring. Maybe.
Yeah, and I think maybe you thought that because the promotional shot is them in separate squares, isn't it?
Yeah,
on a
it's
thing.
all them. It gives the impression that they're all in this one house. living their own lives, as it's called, life, and maybe it was going to be character of the week, story of the week, which I know the BBC has done well to varying degrees over the years. I just don't know. I get all your points are valid.
I mean, I didn't love this, and I don't know.
No,
again, like with us, if I'm gonna go back to it, but for an hour's entertainment, an hour's drama, flew by for me. I enjoyed it. I thought, for the most part, I thought it was well performed. You know, you've got a reliable cast.
And the BBC, well, all broadcasters, not just the BBC, all broadcasters have got a difficult job on their hands of keeping what the traditional TV watcher wants, which is your mum, my mum, and people a lot younger. But then they've got to compete with people who say all the good stuff is on Netflix, which I also don't agree with.
No.
So I don't quite know. We've spoken about it endlessly, how you get the balance right. And I don't know the answer to that at all, and I don't think many broadcasters do. But I don't think that any of the BBC's offerings so far this autumn, us and this one, they could just be the same show, really. They could just take Alison Steadman and Peter Davidson out of life and put them in us, and that would probably work the same. So they've got a tricky game on their hands as to how to speak to different audiences, and I just don't think these two shows are a good example of doing that. I think they're very middle of the road, very much targeted to one specific audience. And
well, no, I don't think it's one specific audience. I think it's a mass. It's a mass audience. It's a mass audience of people, you know, as you say, of an age. But they are the mass, the audience who primarily are watching TV. We'll switch. We'll still switch on the TV at, say. We'll switch on the
9.
TV at I was going to say switch on the TV at 7 p.m. Watch the one show, watch the soaps, and then what's on at 9 on BBC or ITV.
Yeah,
that is the routine for at least one generation of society, of if not two generations, and then you've got the younger generation whose schedule is when they get home. What's on Netflix? And for us, we are picking and choosing from.
We're straddling both. The point of the podcast is to look at the new offerings each week, and the hope is that there's at least one show a week that we can champion. Last week I really loved Des a bit more than Matt did. It's not my job to worry about the next generation of TV license payers or, you know, ITV advertisers.
Playing devil's advocate, you know, the BBC did have I May Destroy You earlier this year, which was a completely different beast and played to that younger audience.
And they did it with normal people. But my argument to you there is I don't believe that I May Destroy You or normal people would have aired on the BBC at the times they did had COVID not played a plan and they had to mess around with the schedules.
Okay,
because both of these shows we talked about, Us and Life, were both meant to be on when normal people was on, and they just thought, we've got nothing for the autumn, we'll hold these back, they're done, they don't need any more work doing to them, and we'll put these things that were supposed to be online on the iPlayer on TV. As it was, they showed it across Monday and Tuesday nights, which I don't think was the plan. And it certainly wasn't the plan to show double episodes of Normal People on Monday nights at 9 o'clock.
No.
And I still don't know ratings-wise whether that did well for them or not, but it was certainly... It ripped my argument to shreds about them not looking for young people. But again, that was a response to what have we got that's done, and what have we got we want to keep for the time when the
I
winter
suppose, depending on how those did, that will, I suppose, inform their decision going forward when things get back to sort of an even keel, whether they will put more of their BBC Three things on in primetime slots or stick to things like Us and Life, where it's more of a safe bet, you know. And as you say, like your Death in Paradises and your Silent Witnesses and things like that. I suppose the outlier is Line of Duty, which sort of appeals across the board.
It straddles the board. Yeah, my folks love that. Younger people love that, and I don't know how many of them any broadcasters got. I think ITV thought they had it with Broadchurch, which is why they kept banging on the doors of Chris Chibnall, but ultimately they didn't. I don't know what the next BBC drama is to come after Us and Life. But if it's another one like this, then I think I'm again without interest, because it just feels like something that K. Mellor's written that could be on at any year. You know, could have been on in the year 2000. It still would have felt old-fashioned and not contemporary.
Yeah.
Life on BBC One Tuesday nights. I'd love to know, actually, if people listen to this, am I just ridiculous? Do you agree with Matt? Are you one of those people that turns on the TV at 9 and watches because you don't want to change the channel? Or are people even watching TV? Are people looking at what they've recorded on their Skybox from weeks ago? But I'd love to know if you just want to. If Matt is right, if Matt is describing you as just somebody who finds
I do
this.
think so. What I'm saying is that people have a lot of people anyway, have a certain schedule that they work around. People who work 8:30 to 5, whether it be switching on Netflix, switching on the telly. For me, I'll normally
You're
be
neither.
watching. Yeah, I'm neither really. I'll normally just find a series and watch it from beginning to end, and some people do that as well. Luke, you being an outlier because you just watch TV all day, really.
Not all day.
That's
I
your,
sleep a lot.
that's your, but that's your, it's your job to know what is
Yeah.
going on TV, is what I'm saying,
Yeah.
basically. So that is your focus. But the people for who TV is a distraction, or not a distraction, I suppose, like a pastime. You know, it's not something that overwhelms them, their life. What they do, and I used to be sort of more on your side of things. Obviously, now working an office job 8:30 to 5, you talk to people, and people have got different things, whether it be watching what. And a lot of people are starting to find normal people now, months after it. And I was having a conversation with one of the girls who is I think she's like 24, 25, and she didn't realise she'd been watching Appropriate Adult and didn't realise that it had been on years and years ago.
No, well, that's fair enough. There's obviously a reason why the BBC, and the fact that they've promoted this as from the makers of Dr. Foster, a follow-up to Dr. Foster, they're looking to that audience, and I feel like that audience is immediately going to feel...
I think Dr. Foster had a more... Again, I think that was a diverse range of people. Because of its sort of almost like melodramatic nature, I think people from all generations did watch that. I don't think it was exclusive to, say, like a middle-aged, middle-class demographic.
No,
which
I agree,
think,
but I don't
which
think...
I think they're pitching Life
this is
towards.
I think Life isn't going to appeal to the same people that Dr. Foster appealed to. I don't believe so, anyway. Anyway, we're quite on the fence about that one. So 9 o'clock Tuesday, BBC One.